I think something just came on. I got a button up top that says recording.
Okay.
Welcome into Press Box Live. I'm Stan the Fan Charles, along with Luke Jackson, the managing editor for Press Box and PressBoxOnline.com, and the old left-hander, Ross Grimsley, down in Bradenton, Florida, formerly of the Baltimore Orioles, the Cincinnati Reds, the Montreal Expos, and I think you had a dose of the Cleveland Indians, didn't you, Ross?
Unfortunately, I did.
Okay. Hey, got to get a couple pieces of business taken care of, and then we're going to dive into some more perspective on the Corbin Burnes trade from Ross Grimsley. But the question is, what company has the expertise and technology to make your home substantially more energy efficient, comfortable, and even virus-free? That would be our friends at AJ Michaels Heating and Air Conditioning in Baltimore, Indianapolis, at ajmichaels.com. And the Super Bowl, well, the big game is coming up this Sunday. I'm sorry, I'm not allowed to use that. That means that you might be looking for a place to make your legal wagers in the state of Maryland. Well, Superbook is the most trusted name in Vegas. And now you can use promo code Stan Charles 23 or Glenn Clark 23 to score up to $250 with their first bet bonus. Win or lose, they will match your first bet up to $250 with promo code Stan Charles 23, all one word with no spaces. Visit superbook.com for terms and conditions. Gambling problem? 1-800-GAMBLER. And I know a lot of people are wagering on that big game this Sunday. Guys, who do you like? San Francisco appears to be locked in at a 2-point favorite. Luke?
Well, it's very difficult for me to go against the best player on the field that day, and that's Patrick Mahomes, and he's backed by a very, very sound defense. So I'll take the Chiefs to cover.
All right. Ross?
Taylor Swift. I'll take Taylor Swift.
There you go.
And give up.
We've got all angles covered.
Exactly.
I'm leaning toward the fact that Kyle Shanahan and his staff have watched this game pretty closely that took place last week. And I think they'll do some things differently, including like maybe figuring out how to run the ball efficiently to start off with, which might set up some things. And I look for Deebo Samuel and Christian McCaffrey to play very well, but it's going to be, I think it's got a chance to be a heck of a football game.
I think you're absolutely right. And to your point, if the Niners fall behind 14-0 this time around, it's going to be a lot more difficult for them to crawl back into that game. And I think they were down, 24-7 at the half against the Lions. Yeah. That happens against KC.
The game's over.
The game's over at that point. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Obviously, I wish the Ravens were involved, but this is a pretty good matchup.
All right. Ross, one of the reasons we wanted to have you on today, and we have you every Monday, and we're really glad to have you every Monday, is you can speak to this Corbin Burnes trade like nobody I've talked to as to what he immediately does to this entire pitching staff for the Baltimore Orioles, aside from his performance, what he means impact-wise in that locker room.
When I saw the trade, I go, all right, they got a number one guy. I didn't, they got a number one guy. I didn't realize until I saw his numbers what he had done, 3-time All-Star, Cy Young Award winner in 21. The numbers, I mean, he's going to pump out 30-plus starts for you. He's going to give you 200 innings. He's going to average, his last 3 years, he's averaged in 93 starts over 6 innings a start. So that's a big thing right there. He's going to give your bullpen just another starter you have is going to give your bullpen a break. But what he brings to the Orioles, other than that, is here's a guy that's a workhorse. He don't want to come out of the games. He's going to give you, all he's got every time. He's going to strike out a ton of guys. Strikes out over 200 hitters in the last. He pitched 167 innings one year with 234, 202 and 22 with 243. And 193 innings, 200. So he's going to strike out a lot of guys. Now, all the numbers that we've seen, really, that says enough. Hits per innings, strikeouts, so on and so forth, are just off the charts. I mean, he is something. But what he's very a lot of guys they don't they love to share what they do, how they do it. And now the Orioles, some of the young guys are starting to make adjustments, come into their own. And this guy could be someone that puts them over the hump. They really, I mean, I really see with a legitimate chance of going deep in the playoffs. You know, and this guy has postseason experience as well. But what he brings to the table, I mean, on and off. And we were talking earlier when I came to Baltimore from Cincinnati. I'd had 3 years. I won some games, and they had
You mean
Mike
that Palmer?
Cuellar.
You mean Palmer, McNally, and Cuellar learned from you? You came
No,
in.
no, I learned from them, but that's just changing teams, and seeing certain guys, and they were very free with advice if you ask them. And what they do is they, well, this is how I do it. You might try it because everything doesn't work the same for everybody. Different hand size. Cuellar had huge hands, so I just watched how he pitched and what he did and asked questions there. And 3 left-handers on that team, we all pitch guys different,
Yep.
But I mean, I see him coming over here. He's a 5-pitch pitcher. His cutter is his best pitch, and he throws it 55% of the time. And his fastball.
So he doesn't rely on his fastball.
No, he throws his sinker 7% of the time, and he throws his 4-seamer rarely. I mean, here's a guy that relies on the cutter. And then he has the curveball, which is a big difference in speed. The changeup's his third most pitch that he uses, and his slider's his fourth. His fastball is his last. He gets ahead in the count, it's all over because he's going to put you away with the cutter. Ahead in the count, hitters hit 150. Behind the count, he needs to get ahead because usually he gets behind, he has to throw his fastball, or he will, and it gets hit. But I think the guys are going to really be able to learn a lot from him. They have to ask questions, and they seem to do that. But this is a guy that's going to take a lot of these guys to the next step, and it's really going to be fun to watch.
Ross, before I bring Luke into the talk, I asked you what his impact is on the pitching staff, the entire pitching staff. But now let's go to the next step. What does that do inside the locker room for the whole team? Do they go, holy crap, we really got a horse now?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And you really don't know if they're done. They may have something else going on, which would really just add to it pitching wise if they do that. But I mean, knowing that you get a horse, a guy like that, I mean, it's going to free up your bullpen. I mean, you put Burnes as your number one and put somebody slot behind him, and then bring Bradish in as your third guy. You're going to have somebody gets knocked around a little bit, then they give you some innings, your bullpen's rested up.
Yeah.
That's a big thing, and that one of the problems I think the last couple of years is the bullpen gets wore out toward the end of the season, and Batista got hurt, and that was really a problem right there. But now they got some guys that are going to give you some innings, and that's really going to be a big help to the bullpen. And as far as the clubhouse, they got to be elated that they have somebody like this, and they're really favorites, even more so now.
It's funny. They had a presser the other day, a Zoom with Mike Elias, and I said, Mike, on a personal level, I said, you blink, and it was just seemed like the other day, a big deal for you was picking up Rio Ruiz or Pedro Severino. And I said, did you have a moment where you said, holy crap, we just picked up, Corbin Burnes? And he said he hasn't really had time for that. Things have been so scattered. But Luke, that really is pretty amazing in the blink of an eye. I know it seems for fans like it's been forever, but this is really this rebuild, in spite of the pandemic, actually moved pretty quickly. And now in a blink of an eye, we're acquiring players like Corbin Burnes.
Yeah, and to Ross's point, I didn't know everything about Corbin Burnes until the Orioles picked him up, and you glance at his Fangraphs page, you glance at his Baseball Reference page, and you realize that this guy that has been maybe the best pitcher in baseball the past 3 years, other than Garrett Cole. I mean, there's really not many holes to punch in his track record. And as Ross said, he's very cutter heavy. And the way I described it on a show earlier, about 4 or 5 days ago, was it's like Emmanuel Clase's cutter as a starter. I mean, it's a pretty intense cutter. The Orioles faced him, I think, in June of 2023, and he was his Cy Young self. And prior to that game, yeah, it had been a little up and down for him in the 2023 season, but he looked like his Cy Young self in that
And he
game.
did, and he
And
did for much of the second half.
and then after that, in the second half, he was back to Cy Young form. And yeah, to your point, Stan, it's you think back to Houston and what Lou Now and his crew did, and of course Mike was a part of that in trading for Garrett Cole and Justin Verlander after what they had been through with that rebuild. If kind of similar, obviously when
They picked
Verlander
up
and
Cole during an off season,
right,
and then as the finishing touch. And that's what I think we got to look towards. If the Orioles are in it with a chance to really win it, and it's June 15th to July 15th, we're going to be in the hunt for one of the big name pitchers.
yeah, absolutely. I think that could absolutely be the case, that they certainly have the farm system and the pieces in order to acquire more help at the deadline. Because as we had talked about before, Stan, we don't know exactly what direction all this young talent that they have coming in to the big league level, what direction it's going to go, and which young players are going to stick, and which young players might not be ready, and which positions are going to need some fortification at the deadline. I'm sure someone in the rotation will get hurt. It's unfortunate. It happens. Yep. It's pitching. And same thing in the bullpen. The DL Hall, moving him, that's a loss in the bullpen. There's no question about it. We thought that he was going to be a big part of the back end of this bullpen without Felix Bautista. They've got to figure that out a little bit now. And I'm sure that they're scouring the free agent market looking for some potential options in the bullpen or via the trade market. So, yeah, to your point, the goal is to win the World Series in 2024. That's what this trade says. And I don't know why they would stop looking for help, if that makes any sense.
Ross, is this trade from Milwaukee's point of view, if they would just take DL Hall and do what I've said, and put him in the bullpen as a strong bullpen piece, they're starting shortstop probably for the next 5 to 7 years in Ortiz, and this number 34 or 38 pick,
right.
what's it called, supplemental pick. Is that trade still a win for them, or do they muck it up by saying, well, we've got DL Hall and he's a starter?
I think it worked out for both sides. I really do. I think Ortiz wasn't going to play here.
Yeah.
I mean, that was obvious, and that was one of the things we had talked about in the past. What are the guys that are the prospects, and there's a lot of them, are kind of locked in a situation that they're not going to get to play that position. He's not going to play ahead of Henderson, or a Holiday. Right. So that's that's kind of, so I think that was a good move for everybody, for the player as well.
Mm-hmm. Do you expect Milwaukee to say, we're going to try, we got to go down this road and see if we can turn him into a successful major league starting pitcher? You expect them to do that?
It depends. I don't know what they have over there. I don't know the situation what they're in, but I mean, obviously they got a plan for this guy. They wouldn't have traded for him and got him. So I think it's going to work out for everybody. I think it was a good trade for everybody. If the Orioles can come up with a way to pay this guy, if he continues to show what, and you know what? With what happened with the sell of the team, there's a very good possibility that could happen. So that's a lot of good things happening for the O's, and I think the Brewers
great
came
week
out
last week.
Yeah, I think the Brewers came out with a couple of good players as well, and a draft pick to boot.
Yeah, yeah. Luke, do you not to spend too much time on Milwaukee's point of view in this, but do you expect them to say, we've got this guy, he's an amazing talent, we've got to explore him as a starter, or do they sort of have they scouted what the guy's been through and what we in Baltimore know and say, nah, we got a chance to have a really dominant arm in the bullpen?
I think they'll eventually get there. I do think that they acquired him with the idea that they were going to try him in the starting rotation, and DL wants to give it another shot.
Yeah.
And they have some opportunity for him in order to do so. Now, I don't know where he would be innings wise because the most innings he's ever thrown in a season is 94 and a third
Right.
back in, I believe, 2018 or 2019.
Right.
It's been a long time since then. And and I don't even know if he's gotten particularly close to that mark since then. And so, could
This is
he
the same.
throw?
This is the exact same path that Dylan Tate. If you look at his minor league record, the Texas Rangers drafted him. They traded him to the Yankees, and I think it was the Yankees who said, "No, he's a bullpen guy." And then they decided, "No, we're going to ramp him back up as a starter."
Right.
And you're looking at his age, and you're saying, when is he supposed to be a starter
Yeah.
that's significant for you?
Yeah. So, but they do have some opportunity for him in that regard because remember, now Burnes is gone. Brandon Woodruff is
Woodruff's
gone.
out for the year.
And so their opening day starter is Freddie Peralta, probably. And then their number two starter is Wade Miley.
Yeah.
And so beyond that, I'm not 100% sure of what their opening rotation is going to be like. And if DL Hall pitches well in the spring, then that opportunity is there for him. Having said that, staying on the mound has always been an issue for him. Hopefully that's behind him and he's able to do that. And throwing strikes consistently as a starter in particular has always been an issue for him. I see him as the same thing you do, as a potentially dominant back end of a
Andrew
bullpen
Miller type bullpen.
left-hander. And I know some Milwaukee fans were upset about the return because both Hall and Ortiz are 25 years old. They're not spring chickens
Right.
as far as prospects. These guys have a chance to be really, really good players. And I think Hall can be exactly what you mentioned. What I would do if he was open to it and would be like where you use him in 4+ out outings, and then you give him a couple days of rest, and you build him up that way in like these like longer relief roles, and then with an eye on him becoming potentially the closer once Devin Williams leaves, and that might be sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if Devin's long for Milwaukee. I don't know if Willie Adames is long for Milwaukee. I don't know what the next step is
They
for
could
them.
both be dealt before the season starts.
So, but it sounds like they want to give it one last shot with DL as a starter. So we'll see where that goes.
Are they rebuilding? Are they in a rebuild mode?
It's very interesting, Ross, because they signed Rhys Hoskins to, I believe, a 2-year deal with an opt-out after year one.
$34 million, right? 17
And once
years.
that contract was signed, and of course they brought back Wade Miley as well, the idea was, I guess that Milwaukee's going to try to repeat as Central Division champions and give it one last go with Corbin Burnes. And that made all the sense in the world. I don't know why the shift occurred. Apparently, it might have been the Orioles who were kind of waiting on Milwaukee to figure out whether they wanted to move Burnes. Maybe they still think that I will say this, in the NL Central, it's a lot easier to kind of reload on the fly than it is in the AL East. So, maybe that's their thought as well. They got a couple good players for Burnes. So it's just for fans, it's kind of hard to let go of a guy who's one of the best pitchers in baseball, who you developed.
Ross, we haven't had the chance to talk to you since this news of the sale broke in midweek last week. You've been down on that field, and you know that the club, for whatever the reasons that John couldn't spend the big money on players, the Royals today announced that they've extended Bobby Witt Jr. for 11 years, $288 million.
Right.
Nothing has come about in a discussion of, and I'm not saying it's only the Orioles side of things, because Scott Boras generally doesn't like to see his players give up years of free agency. What does this do for morale in the combination of making this trade and having an owner who has some deeper pockets than the current structure of ownership in Baltimore?
Well, it's always good to know that, especially with the free agent market the way it is, that you can go out and get players even though the cost is usually skyrocketed. But I think as a player and knowing you might need this or you might need that, now they're not afraid to go out and get it. They're not afraid to go out and get a trade for a guy. I think before all this came down, I could be wrong, but a lot of they're not making any moves. They're not doing nothing. And obviously, I really believe the sell of the team had possibly something to do with that. I could be wrong, but it just seems like everything happened, the way it did. So I think as a player in the clubhouse, and you see new ownerships come in, obviously it sounds like they're willing to pay money when the other guy said he wasn't going to spend anything, and they're going to have to up the prices, or that kind of put a bad taste in everybody's mouth over that. But
Of the pitchers, of the pitchers the Orioles were in talks with, do you like this deal? Forget what we gave up. Is this the best pitcher of him, Cease and Luzardo?
I think after looking at these numbers, what this guy's done, really, I think they got. I mean, you had to give up something to get something. That's the way trades are most of the time. You got to give up something, and I think with Hall's got a chance to be a good pitcher. This guy's already good.
Yeah, right.
Ortiz is not going to play. You might as well get something that you can, and it just happened that some team wanted them. So I think it worked out great for both teams, and I think with the new ownership and the enthusiasm and the idea that they want to win and they want to win now. That's the whole thing, and you're going in to win the World Series because you got a guy like you got. So that's great.
Luke, the Orioles made this trade, I think, on Thursday. By Saturday morning, John Morosi who's he with, Morosi? Is he with Fox
MLB Network?
MLB Network. Okay. Yeah. He was reporting that despite the fact the Orioles made this trade, that they were still in the hunt to get Dylan Cease. Nothing has come of that since then. Do you think there's any possibility that the Orioles are in discussions to add another big name?
I think they're probably kicking the tires on those things. I think the Orioles, with respect to Cease, are like a lot of other teams. They're waiting for Chris Getz's demands to come down to planet Earth. It's like with all these things, GMs are willing to overpay a little bit to get the player that they want.
Yeah.
They're just not willing to do anything crazy. And it sounds like Chicago's asking price has been a little bit crazy. Based on everything that we've heard, I know Alex Anthopoulos said that they looked into it and it was just too expensive. But yeah, to Ross's point, earlier in our chat, why not look into continuing to fortify this club?
Yeah.
You're trying to win the World Series in 2024. It's not like there aren't places that you can improve. Why not? Why not look at, you've got a farm system, you got a really good farm system. You've got more players than you know what to do with right now, even after trading these two players. Why not take a look at where you can improve? And there are some very high-end free agents still available. I don't expect them to be in on those guys, but there's going to, I will tell you this, there will be some very useful free agents signed between now and the start of the season to 1-year deals. The Orioles got a couple of those guys last year. So and I do think that the free agent market will speed up here. And I feel like we've been saying that all off season, but camp is starting in less than 2 weeks.
Yeah, they like to find a team by mid-February. They'd like to acquire a JD Martinez, a Matt Chapman, a Cody Bellinger, those kind of guys, and Blake Snell and Jordan Montgomery. I mean, those 5 should be coming off the board fairly, in the next 10 days, I think. And it probably will happen when I heard the Giants today are talking to Jorge Soler, which that's a good fit for them.
And I don't know how legit this is, but there have been rumors about the Phillies still eyeing up the high-end free agents. Their payroll is pretty high at this point, so I don't know whether they would have to move out money to pick up another big-time free agent. I don't know.
All right. Let me tell you a little bit about the Costas Inn. Super Bowl Sunday coming up. 410-481 No, 410-477-1975. I always do that. I go back and give an old phone number for when I did talk radio. 410-477-1970. They're still back there on the memory bank. 410-477-1975, the number for the Costas Inn. Make your plans to enjoy the Super Bowl this Sunday down at the Costas Inn. You can order crabs now by calling and reserving your crabs and time you want to get there and size of your crabs, and of course the purchase price for your crabs. They get great crab cakes, great crab soup, and a whole host of specials Monday through Friday. But with the Super Bowl coming up, you can also add a touch of goose flights to your Super Bowl feast. They're one of the few places in town, along with all 7 Glory Days grills, Guilford Hall Brewing, and the Wine Source in Hamden, where you can get Goose Flights beer to help the mission of Tony Saragusa's aviation company and his family, who are keeping it alive, to fly people in need of medical travel, not life-saving, but medical travel. Goose Flights takes them at no cost. And we're donating $1.98 out of every can sold to help that mission. All right. Goose Flights. Guys, let's talk. So go to the Costas Inn, make your plans for Sunday, 410-477-1975, or look at the menu at costasinn.com. Guys, Ross, when you were a player, it's now 6-7 days away from reporting date. How itchy were you
We'd probably be down there already. We would be in Florida. Get out of the cold weather as quick as you can, get you a place, and get down there and start working out. Because no matter what you do prior to going down to the warm weather, no matter what you do to get ready, you're going to be sore and you're going to be hurting. So it's best to get down here as soon as you can and get acclimated to everything, get situated, and get started, because everybody's raring. I tell you, on this team now, with all the excitement, they're ready to get started. I mean, the biggest thing they're going to have to worry about is pulling the reins back on them, because they're ready to go. They're ready to get going, and you don't want to do too much too soon.
Now, today's athlete, you'd like to think that none of them kind of take the winter off the way, say, maybe a Boog Powell used to, and he'd show up and he'd wear that that rubber sweatshirt to drop the pounds in the,
Get in the sauna with it on.
Right, get in the sauna with it on and drop like 25 pounds in 3 days.
Yeah.
But what advice would you give a player who hasn't really done everything to this point? Is it to take your time a little bit? You do have 6 weeks to get
Oh, absolutely. I mean, some guys are trying to make the team, as maybe as a utility guy. I think the spots are pretty much done. The players know who's going to be there. But the big thing is, the hitters, they have 6 weeks. You don't want to peak too soon. The pitchers, the same thing. You don't want to get down here and start. That's with young guys. The biggest problem is they want to impress everybody. They want to impress their peers. So they're going to go out and do a little bit more. You're going to feel good. You're going to feel good. And after the first couple of outings, you're going to hit that dead arm thing. And that's you try to stay away from that, but you really can't beat it, or you can't keep away from it. But the thing is don't try to do too much. Take your time and make sure you're ready, because the biggest problem now with guys is it's a power game. You throw as hard as you can, you swing as hard as you can. And if you're not ready, you're going to see obliques, which we weren't allowed to say in the Giant organization. They just frowned on even saying that word.
What did they call it?
They didn't say you hurt your side. That's all it was. Dick Tidrow was in charge. He said, I don't want to hear it. Don't say it. Hell, I didn't know what it was. I thought it was an algebra term when I first heard it. So anyway, but yeah, that's those little injuries, and that's an injury that doesn't heal very quickly.
No.
Any of that rib situation, but throwing too hard too soon, And like I said, it's a power thing, and guys are going to feel good. They're going to get out of that cold weather into the warm weather, and they're going to feel really strong. And the biggest thing is to take it easy and don't try to overdo it, and just build your arm strength up, because what happens is you usually, I know we were building our arm strength up when the season started, first couple of games, and to be able to throw 7 and 9 innings, but that's a little bit different now. But you still got to be careful.
Ross, is it my imagination, or do the exhibition games start much more quickly now once your team is assembled
Yeah,
down there?
usually
It
after
seems like
the
it's within a 7 to 9 days they're playing
well,
ball.
you get your pitcher. The pitchers are the beginning of spring training is mostly for the pitchers, to get them ready to throw in the
Ramp
games,
up. Yeah.
throw an inning or two, and then well, it was different back when we would go out and throw 2 innings, and if we had easy innings, you'd throw 3 to start off with. It's a little bit different now, but yeah, you got to be you got to be careful.
Luke, what are you anticipating the start of spring training to be like?
As Ross said, I think a lot of guys are probably raring to get down to Sarasota now, and I would not be surprised if a few guys are already down there working out. So yeah, I expect there to be a lot of excitement, and you just hope that everybody stays healthy. Like Ross says, don't push it far too soon. That's the last thing you want. But I was kind of curious on Ross's front. When you went down to spring training, did you like to be throwing at about 80% once you got down? Because like right now you mentioned that some guys come to spring training needing to impress to make the roster, and those guys are like raring to go for like a major league game as soon as they get down there.
Did
Uh,
Ross have 100%, or was he always
No,
about
no, I
80%?
never. I learned that quick not to do that, and not even during the season. I
That's
mean,
what I think.
there was an effort amount that you could put in to get the best. When you overthrew, you were going to take a chance of hurting yourself, and you couldn't hit a spot to save your life. So, I mean, that's what all pitchers should try to do. What is the maximum effort I can put into a pitch to throw the ball where I want to? And if you can't do it, then you got to take a little bit off, and that's just the way the game was. Right now, it's a little bit different. They throw as hard as you can. They try to throw the breaking ball as hard as you can, and it's just the way the game is. So you got to be a lot of injuries now.
All right. Guys, that's going to wrap it for this week. I appreciate Luke Jackson, managing editor of Press Box, and Ross Grimsley, the old left-hander. We'll be back next Monday, and who knows what the hell will be going on, what'll happen in between now and next Monday. But it's pretty amazing to look back at the last 7 days or 8 days from last Monday to this Monday, what's happened. Everything about this feels different now. So we're all pumped and excited, and we'll see you next week. We're thanks to our friends at Superbook Sports, where they offer the Stan Charles 23 special promo, or Glenn Clark 23, which is a first bet bonus, win or lose, of up to $250 at Superbook Sports. We're also brought to you by AJ Michaels Heating and Air Conditioning and our friends at the Costas Inn. It's going to do it for us right now, and we'll talk to you down the road. I'll be back with Eric Garfield on Thursday, late afternoon. Bye for now.